Welcome to day 221 of the New Way. We are continuing our discussion of Mary's act of anointing Jesus with expensive perfume. So the minute the vial was broken, the smell just overwhelmed everyone. This was no secret act of worship. This was very visible and odoriferous, intensely smelling. What do you think was the crowd's reaction to this beautiful act of worship by Mary? I'll read Matthew 26, 8 and 9. When the disciples saw this, they were indignant. "Why this waste?" they asked. "This perfume could have been sold at a high price and the money given to the poor." And according to Mark 14, 4-5, some of those present were saying indignantly to one another, "Why this waste of perfume? It could have been sold for more than a year's wages and the money given to the poor." And they rebuked her harshly. And I'll read John's version in John 12, 4-6. But one of the disciples, Judas Iscariot, who was later to betray him, objected. "Why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It was worth a year's wages." He did not say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. As keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. Not exactly what I expected, but they didn't know what the future week would hold. I'll read Matthew 26, 10-13. Aware of this, Jesus said to them, "Why are you bothering this woman? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me. When she poured this perfume on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial. Truly I tell you, wherever this gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her." And Mark's version in Mark 14, 6-9. "Leave her alone," said Jesus. "Why are you bothering her? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, and you can help them anytime you want, but you will not always have me. She did what she could. She poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial. Truly, I tell you, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her." And John 12, 7-8. "Leave her alone," Jesus replied. "It was intended that she should save this perfume for the day of my burial. You will always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me." Do you believe that God provided her with the perfume just for this purpose? In other words, do you believe that God is interested in the little tiny details of our lives? I do. I remember one time when David got an unexpected bonus from work. We were excited about getting it, but we kept feeling that God wanted us to do something special with it and not just spend it on ordinary needs. So we set it aside and didn't use it for a couple of weeks. One Sunday, a dear friend arrived at church crying because her mother had been diagnosed with cancer, and she didn't have the money to travel to see her. we knew immediately what that money was for. We were so glad that we had listened to God's prompting to watch and see what He wanted instead of just spending it on what we needed. God will use you to bless others if you are faithful to listen to Him and give Him all the praise and glory. And it's fun to be able to give away what God gives to us. Mary could have chosen to keep her perfume for her own use, but she gave lavishly. And Jesus promised her that 2,000 years later, we would still be talking about her gift. And we are. I'll read John 12, 9 through 11. Meanwhile, a large crowd of Jews found out that Jesus was there and came, not only because of him, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. So the chief priest made plans to kill Lazarus as well, for on account of him, many of the Jews were going over to Jesus and believing in him. Now, I don't know of any record of Lazarus after this statement. I don't know if the chief priest killed him or if he continued to serve in the early church. That's another thing we'll have to wait until we get to heaven to know. In his service, Dale.